what actually sets great leaders apart? It's not IQ, it's not their title, it's emotional intelligence. And there are four pillars. I know I've been talking about these a lot, but it just keeps coming up and up. And the first is self-awareness. You can't lead others if you're not aware of who you are and how you present. So, in other words, you need to understand yourself first and foremost. Then there's self management, the ability to regulate your emotions so that they don't drive your decisions. And then there is social awareness, and that's reading the room. It's not just filling the space with noise, it's not being the loudest person in the room. It's actually being able to be quiet and to read the room and to make sure that you are adding value and you're not diminishing from the conversation. And then it's relationship management. And that's really turning conflict into collaboration and conversation. It's diffusing a situation. These four pillars are your ticket to having an edge in your leadership. When I coach high performers, they don't struggle with capability. They get stuck in very outdated patterns. Emotional intelligence allows them to beat the cycle. Today, I was coaching someone and they were talking to me about how they go into a conversation, recognizing that they often say yes when they don't want to. They were reiterating a conversation to me, and they were aware enough that they knew that they shouldn't have said yes. They were regretting it the moment that they did, but they still said yes. And why is that? It was their inability to not just have the awareness that it was most likely going to work, but it was the ability to have self-management. So their statement to me was, well, they must have been a really good salesperson. The reality was they weren't managing their emotions and they were allowed to be guilted into doing whatever it is that they were asked to do. I really am focused these days on emotional intelligence because if you want to influence, if you want clarity, and if you want impact, you can't lead with pressure. You need to lead with emotional intelligence. I've talked about emotional intelligence being the real edge to leadership, and I spoke very quickly about self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. I want to go into each one just a moment longer. So, self-awareness, you have to know yourself before you can try and lead others. Recognize your triggers and recognize your habits. Understanding how you're perceived, those are all things that are going to make you a more influential leader. So understand that clarity can be brutal, but it totally sets you free. If you're not sure how self-aware you are, go to marlabace.com and take the self-awareness assessment. Once you know you've got your self-awareness under control, the other thing you need to be working on is self-management. And that's understanding your triggers. In NLP, there's ways that we can give you that are small, subtle hints for you to be recognizing your own triggers. And I actually just shared this with somebody else today. They're going into a really difficult conversation. And I said, it's one thing for your brain to know what's going on. It's another thing for you to distract and divert yourself from the conversation. But if you can give yourself a little applied pressure, whether it's on your finger or wherever it is, when you notice you're starting to have an emotional reaction, it's going to bring you back into the moment. So there's a whole host of tips and tricks that you can use for self-management, but it's really about learning how to regulate your emotions, especially under stress. Whether it's that person getting talked into something that they don't want to do, your boss convincing you that you need to take on more work because somebody just left, and you not having the emotional intelligence, the self-management to realize it's a trigger, here we go again, and to be able to flip that conversation that says, okay, while we are in the process of hiring again, I can take on these responsibilities, but that means these responsibilities are going to fall from my desk. So again, self-management is the second category of emotional intelligence, but it's probably one of the most important that gives you the ability to command and control your body language and how people perceive you. When you're managing yourself, a good rule of thumb is that you can't lead with pressure, but you can lead with presence. Whether it's managing your emotions one more time, managing how you communicate, being clear, clarity is a way to influence. Then there's social awareness. So leadership is not a monologue, it's an ongoing conversation. And that requires an emotional temperature in the room and that you respond with empathy and not ego. Adapt your communication to the style of those around you. So if you're communicating up, it's going to be very different than if you're communicating to your team. And that's going to be even different than you're communicating or collaborating across divisions. It's not about commanding attention, it's about earning trust. And that happens when you have social awareness. And then last and definitely not least, probably the most important is relationship management. Connection drives collaboration and culture. Navigate conflict with curiosity and genuine interest. So you have courage and not fear. You're not avoiding, you're leaning in. These are ways for you to build a relationship effectively. You're going to build influence by aligning the people around you, not by alienating them. Remember, the quality of your relationship is significantly more important than the quantity of relationships. Whether you're talking about networking outside your organization or inside your organization, even inside that conference room, that high stakes meeting, remember, emotional intelligence is your leadership edge.